Welcome to Education in Our Community. I am your host, Reverend Robert L. McKnight, and today we shall be speaking on the topic, the State of the Race 2016. For when we come back, and I'll see you again, we will have perhaps only 30 days left in the year 2016. And so much has transpired in the political, economic, and the social as well as academic arenas. Until we want to do a summary of many of the things that have occurred this year, I have a guest host, Miss LORA SALL. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. And so we shall get started, and thank you for joining in. Call someone and tell them to tune in to Education in Our Community. We would greatly appreciate it. So much has been happening, especially in the political arena. Just recently, they had revelations in terms of the presidential candidates, both of them, but one in particularly from the Republican Party, and whose actions, they're saying, in the social media is appalling, and their cries for him to step aside. In the limited number of years that I have been involved in politics and on earth, as you look at history, I have never witnessed nor read about anything that could compare to the current political arena and situation. What do you think about that?
I think ugliness comes in all sorts of forms. It's in our political arena, it's in our law enforcement, it's in our communities.
Yes.
People are just ugly right now. And what's going on with these candidates, and the sad part to me is that these people are out playing golf together after all of this media hoopla, after everything is said and done in front of the cameras. Then they go home and they sit down to a dinner, or they go out and play golf, and they're best of friends. And so what's scary to me is that so many people watching what's happening are pushing aside the reality. And one thing I heard our First Lady say about a month ago, she said, being the president doesn't show who you are. It reveals who you are. And if what's being revealed right now is who this person really is, why does anyone think all of a sudden they're going to be this great president? They've been revealing their true self the whole time they've been running for this office. And so expecting something different, they call that insanity. When you keep doing the same thing, expecting to see something different.
Yes,
okay.
According to Einstein.
Exactly, that's insanity. So why are we the insane ones? Or is he insane?
Yeah.
The fact that he so boldly is being himself and is still placed as number one in the Republican Party. He's still placed as someone who would even qualify to run as president. And so many of his supporters are still advocating for him in spite of what he said and done. And so for me, I think it is especially important now for us to take advantage of our right to vote, make sure we get out there in numbers and vote. Whoever you're going to vote for, just
Yes,
vote.
yes,
Make sure you vote.
Yes. I recall from a history lesson, one of the founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, stated that the masses are asses and should never be allowed to elect a president.
Ooh.
He was against public elections. And you see a lot of criticism for that. But it's taken all these years, all these decades, for us to understand what Hamilton was able to see then in 1776 is just now really revealing itself in the year 2016, simply because the candidate had said at one time that he could shoot someone in Times Square and the people would still vote for him. That was during the primary. Mm-hmm. And so even though he has made these inhumane, these dehumanizing and degrading comments about all women, you can't talk about one and not talk about all of them. He yet believes that the people will support him. And so consequently, it says something about our humanity, at least the way it's being expressed in the United States. You had also mentioned, and not all of them by no means, I would never want to live in a society where there was no law. I don't want history to be rolled back to the fastest draw. And they are the ones who made the law. But you have what they call so many rogue policemen. And every day I understand from a recent report, 1 to 2 African Americans die at the hands of law enforcement officers. I should say 1 to 2 people. The vast majority are African Americans. I haven't confirmed that, but it appears to be true. And these are the ones you look to uphold the law, that you look to bring peace and order. Families have called in different cities across the country, relatives who perhaps were under the influence of having mental problems, only to have the one that they call the police to help them restrain and to bring order to lose their lives. It is most unusual that this social scene, and then we cannot wash our hands of the responsibility because in Chicago, every day, 2 or 3 people, sometimes more, but on the average, will lose their lives. It is expected to approach 1,000 when all of the counting is finally done. And this is not at the hands of the police, but these are homicides that takes place within the African American community by the hands of African Americans. And it doesn't mean that we should accept it. I never will forget Dick Gregory appeared at BB Memorial a couple of years ago. And he says the same thing happens in all communities, perhaps not at the same rate that it is transpiring in the black community. He says, but you kill where you live. You don't leave your community. And he says it is the economic and social and political conditions that exist within the African American community, and being unable to strike out at anyone else, you turn in upon yourself.
Yeah. I can remember growing up when we were going through so much during the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the whole civil rights movement. And something that we were encouraged to do is to start acknowledging one another, African American to African American.
Yes.
We started calling each other brothers and sisters.
Yes.
And, well, you know, folks were calling each other brothers and sisters in church
Yes.
long before we
Yes.
started doing it in the community. While at the same time, we started doing it more in the community.
Yes.
And that's something that really helped me,
Yes.
as well as many others like me, to see each other in a different light.
Yes.
And so if I see you as my brother, I can't just kill you without taking to heart the fact that you're my brother. I can't do the same thing, mistreat my sister, without thinking, this is going to impact my family. You are my family. We may not share the same blood, but you're still my family. And so when we are seeing so much death and the killings and the suffering going on in our communities, what we have to take a step back and do is start recognizing that we're talking about our family members. We're talking about the people in our communities needing to be a part of us in our hearts and in our minds. And therefore, we cannot mistreat or kill that person that we say we love.
Wow. Now, a couple of things. I've stated it frequently on this very show. I quoted the late Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, tremendous theologian, sociologist, and historian, who said, in days past and gone, it was the black church, the black family, and especially in the South, the black schools that joined hands together to rear up our children. And if we look at these, the black church collectively, has lost some of its influence. You had said, for instance, and especially ever since I can remember, in the church, you were brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so. And when you reached a certain age, you became mother or you became elder because it was associated with your age group. You had now joined the age group of the elders, and you were called elders. So that we could see the influence of the church in the community. And the church family was a part of your extended family. And there's an absence of this for the most part today. I don't know if you saw the movie Ray, but of course from your own childhood, about Ray Charles. And Ray Charles' music was directly influenced by the music in the church. So was Aretha's, Johnny Taylor, and I can go on and on and on. Our religious church music impacted and influenced the secular music, the blues, the rhythm and blues, and the jazz were impacted by what was going on in the church. In the church. And then the church also had an impact in terms of school, because number one, you had the Baptist training and Methodist training classes and Sunday school, in which we still have, but other extensions of that in the evening where the children were taught. Moral values were a part of that. And so these three institutions worked hand in hand. And today, we have at least two generations, a generation being 25 years, and then another generation coming up, almost 3 generations, at least 2 and another beginning, that grew up not even in shouting distance of the church, but like weeds in the field. So this positive influence, this moral influence, this sense of correctness and righteousness is missing from a part of our lives. We miss it in the formative years. So it is not there.
So is there no question as to why we are going through what we're going through now with our political scene? One of the candidates was invited to a church in, I can't remember the state, but he was invited to a African-American church.
Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you. And I noticed before he got up to speak, as we are accustomed to doing, we prayed. And in the church, everybody had their heads bowed and their eyes closed, and they were praying. And he was sitting there looking around, because clearly he was uncomfortable. He was not where he normally would have been. And so he didn't even know what to do. But there is so much that's going on, going back to your original question regarding the political climate right now. There is so much going on within our politics and with the candidates, and another debate is coming up soon. Now you're hearing so much strife, but there's the big issue is the fact that the church has been removed from the spirit of these folks. I mean, they are not involved in any sort of prayer. You can see where his commitment is to his money, his success, himself. And so when you're talking about this person having some love and care for his fellow man, he's not understanding that. And that's why it's been so easy for him to put down various religions, to put down other cultures, and to put down his fellow candidates, even though they're all friends. Behind closed doors, he mentioned he's been playing golf with dinner, okay, and the daughters are good friends, okay, but on stage and in front of the cameras, they're at each other. Well, I saw a movie back in the 60s about the first black president. I woke up middle of the night and this movie was on. And that president lasted just a year and a half, maybe. I have no idea the name of the movie, don't know how it is I ended up watching it. But I was very young. This was back in the 60s. The president left office after a year and a half, maybe 2 years, because he wasn't ruthless enough. He could not handle being as evil as they expected him to be in order to be the president of the United States. Now, this was back in the 60s. And yet we have this candidate now that is showing all of who he is proudly and still with all the support, and yet he knows nothing about praying. He knows very little about being kind to his fellow man or woman, and yet proudly he's showing people, I can still win this.
Wow. Now, it is important that we make note of the fact, as we said before, the absence of the influence of the church in our individual lives and then collectively as a people in this country. It reminds me of when, not the last Bush, but Daddy Bush was president, and he was under severe criticism. And he was quoting someone, but it was very appropriate for the occasion. He says, you cannot criticize the government unless you criticize the people or the families that are governed.
Ooh.
Because it says clearly, a government of the people and for the people. And he said, when leadership, now I'm paraphrasing, the first part I was not paraphrasing, but he says, if leadership is corrupted, it is because collectively the consciousness of the people is corrupted or unrighteous. I forget his choice of words. He said, it is reflected in all the institutions. And so consequently, it was the church didn't have the influence in the homes. And what was going on in the homes and in the community was reflected in the elective leadership. Because a righteous people will not tolerate an unrighteous government or leadership.
Whoa.
So we vote for people and we support those that really reflect what we are. And this is what we are seeing in all of this groundswell of support for Mr. Trump. He represents the heart of the some of the American people.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because what does that say about our law enforcement?
Same thing.
It's not the profession, it's the people that were hired into that profession. And also even Abraham Lincoln said that if you want to see the character of the man, give them a little power. And that'll show you their character every time. What we're seeing now with our political arena, a little power is coming forth, okay? Our candidate is getting more power than he's ever had. The reality TV show didn't give him the least amount of power that he wanted compared to what he's getting now.
Yeah, that exposure.
The exposure that he has now. And so if you look at the people who have been hired to perform the job of police officer, some of the people, okay, you get somebody with the same kind of mentality, the control, power mentality, that character that says, I'm in charge, okay? And put them in a community where they don't understand the community, don't understand the people, have no regards for the people that they're serving, that they're supposed to be serving. Then what you're gonna get is somebody that's just gonna throw around their weight.
And the reason we are seeing the manifestations that we are, racial manifestation, in terms of police interaction with black community, you can't understand it by looking at it in the present context. You have to go back and look at the history. And what has been the history in terms of black and white relationships here? It has been one of superiority and inferiority, assumed superiority and inferiority, one of power and one of powerlessness. It has not been one of equality, and behavior is learned. This assumed culture, any culture, is handed down from generation to generation. Culture does not begin anew with each generation, but it is handed down. And so they inherited the attitude of oppressor. It's inherited. It's almost in the DNA. And when you give a person any authority, for my generation, we had traffic boys. You got to wear a little red sweater, and you had to have a little badge. And when we were all in the 4th grade, we put that red sweater on. We got to monitor the halls. We got to hold that little sign to stop traffic. We were somebody. And when we didn't have the sweater on, we got to wear the badge on our leg right here. We wanted everybody to recognize that we had power. And we felt that sense of superiority. Same thing, put on the child a Cub Scout uniform, a Brownie uniform. Uniform does something to the psyche. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have a sense of self and a sense of identity, it goes straight to your head. And so rather than filling the position, you allow the position to fill you.
There you go. Yes.
And you become an imminent danger to yourself and to others. Yes. I really want to thank you for stopping by and sharing with us. And hopefully, I'd seen the show a little while ago where you interviewed a gentleman about music, the history of jazz. And you talked about that in the social circle. Why isn't it that jazz is not impactful today? If you look at what's happening in the community and you look at the music, then you will begin to see a correlation between behavior and music. It has always been there. Yes. And so I hope that you will tune in to that show. You hosted that show. What was the name of it?
It was called The Jazz Prophet.
The Jazz Prophet. Look for that. And I'm going to join you in watching it. Note that when you are watching it, I will be watching it as well. And thank you for sharing with us. Thank you again for joining us. Yes. We appreciate it.
Thank you.